My mind works in different ways, y'all. But boy, don't we have a party. Don't we have a party in the White House? We got a bunch of right wingers and left wingers. Hey, and I also noticed that some of y'all took my statement for granted and moved up. You'd have to be a Bible pastor, remember, to get that. The Gospel of John is a book of evidence. Evidences. John gives evidences to prove his point. And by the way, interestingly enough, our old-time preachers used to talk about the fact that you don't have to park your brain to be a Christian. Matter of fact, not only you don't have to, well, you need to be real thinkers. You need to be real hearers. Because that's what a disciple is. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I want you to think about that. John ends his book in verses 30 and 31 by saying, "Therefore many other signs Jesus also performed in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book." That is the Gospel of John. "But these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name." Now, so we don't have to guess why John wrote his book, okay? He tells us what he's writing about and the function and the purpose of it. Come back to that thinking part in a minute. But years ago in West Monroe, Louisiana, when I was in school preaching, they had a Christian Science church gathering, meeting, big meeting. And they put a big sign over the Washita River Bridge. And the sign said, "Do you think, or do you think you think?" Because sometimes all the stuff we think is real is not real at all. And by the way, in modern computer technology, there's a lot of thinking going on. Garbage in, garbage out stuff. So we have to be careful what we put in our minds and in our hearts. And so John says, I'm writing these things to give you, I'm writing these signs, by the way, and I'm going to point that out, to give you the ability to understand who Jesus is, to have faith in him, and thus have eternal life. Now, the NIV says about verse 30, truly Jesus did many other miraculous signs. And they add that word miraculous there. Now, you and I kind of understand, our understanding is that these signs John talks about are miracles. But John never uses the word miracle. He never uses the word miraculous. He said many other signs did Jesus, but these signs are written so that you can believe. Now, I keep telling y'all this, but in our modern, any y'all ever had to take a driving test? Y'all take a driving test? You know what an octagonal sign is on a driving test? You don't have to read the letters, do you, to understand what that sign is? That's a stop sign, isn't it? Stop sign. Yeah, or one of those triangular signs. Yield. Or even, you see railroad kind of sign. Now, so we can see the shape of the signs and understand the message that they're trying to get to us. Yeah. So if you see that octagonal sign and you're coming about halfway through the block and you see it down there, you know that sign tells you you're fixing to have to stop. Yeah. Signs are to tell you something. Yeah. They're to inform you. In Acts 2:20, 22, when Peter preached on the day of Pentecost, he said, "Men of Israel, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited to you by God by wonders, by miracles and wonders and signs which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know." Now, what I want you to see is that Peter uses three words to talk about what Jesus did. The word miracle. The word miracle is that Greek word, the Greek word dunamis. It's a Greek word from which we get our English word dynamite. The word miracle shows you the power that it took to perform that action. Someone has well said that even an atheist could not deny a miracle. If he was in the presence of a miracle, he'd have to say, "Wow, that's a miracle." And then the second word he uses is wonders. The word wonder is what that event causes upon the one who views it, who sees it. The person sees it happen and he's in amazement, he's in wonderment. It causes him to understand that this is a wondrous event. Now, it's interesting that sometimes in our English words we kind of miss the idea that something wonderful is, wondrous. And then the third word he uses is the word sign, simeon. That's our word. That's the word John. That's the only word John uses. In Hebrews 2, I'll just mention this and run. Are y'all listening fast? Yeah. Okay. God also testified to it by signs and wonders and various miracles that gifts of the Holy Spirit distributed according to His will. The God working with them. And there's those three words again. Signs, wonders, and miracles. John don't use miracles. He don't talk about wonders. He talks about sign, and the effects that sign is supposed to have on the one who sees the sign. That's it. Now, in our text today, John records the first sign. Now, he'll tell us that. He'll tell us that's what he's doing. So, I want to look at it in a second. I'll just look at there's 11 verses here, so I won't read all 11 to you at one time. We'll just read a few of them at a time. But in verse 11, I want you to know that John's going to say, "This first sign Jesus did in the presence of his disciples." Come back to that. First we notice the details of the occasion. For which this sign was performed, or in which this sign was performed. And generally speaking, many of us who've read John know that this was the wedding at Cana, don't we? It was that wedding feast. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come." Now, what do you think Jesus thought she was expecting him to do? Well, contextually, we know something about it because we've read the stories, right? Yeah. So I'll check you out that way. Yeah. Back when I was in the school of preaching, the wives had classes they had to take, and so Judy had to go to class on Monday night. She didn't have to go all day long like I did, but on Monday night. And Bill Johnson was teaching the class, and some of you who are Northsiders, long ago, Bill Johnson was a mail carrier here on Jensen Drive, up and down. And he became a gospel preacher, and then a great revival preacher and teacher, and then a teacher at the school of preaching. But anyway, to make my short story long, as I sometimes do. Bill said, we're staying, told the wife that we're staying with Brother back, and we're going to find out if Paul got to Rome. And Judy said he did. And he looked at her and she said, "Well, you told us to read the book." Well, if you read the book all the way through, at the end, he got to Rome. Well, if you read John, you understand, the stories that he tells. Simon Peter, and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of what? Of Cana in Galilee, and two others of his disciples were together. Now that's the point I want you to see. Nathanael was from Cana. And if you're reading the Gospel of John, if you remember what we've already said in chapter 1, Nathanael was the one that Philip went to get, and he was sitting under the fig tree, and Jesus said, before you were, Philip called you under the fig tree, I saw you, and he said about Nathanael, a man who knew no guile. So Nathanael was the last disciple that John talks about in that story who came to Jesus. And then you know that chapter 2 always follows chapter 1, right? Yeah. So he tells the story about the wedding, and it just so happened it was in Cana of Galilee. And Nathanael, the last disciple that Jesus was dealing with in chapter 1, was from Cana. That's interesting to me. I don't know if it is to you or not. It is to me. And notice then the event that's taking place, and it's a wedding. Is it as amazing to you as it is to me that the first time Jesus performed, or at least John recorded him performing, was at a wedding? And as Charles was teaching us this morning in Luke, the Jews and the signs and the prophecies all talked about the coming spiritual wedding, the bridegroom coming, and that's another interesting observation to me. We'll talk about that in a broader term. Remember, this sign is to build faith, and we don't always see the background of those things. And thirdly, notice who was present. John names who was present. The mother of Jesus. And another interesting observation, and this is just free, maybe not for your, this is just free. Do you know that John never calls her Mary? He always calls her the mother of Jesus. The mother of Jesus. The mother of Jesus. Now, remember that Luke records after Jesus was born, he talks about Mary, by the way, and he says that Jesus, when Jesus confronted those people at the temple, the priests and everything, Mary pondered these things in her heart, and she kept them there in her heart. She remembered things about Jesus. She knows things about Jesus. She was the virgin who gave birth